What's cracking, YouTube? Thanks for tuning in. Today's project is to make a new tailgate or half gate for this trailer right here. The reason this is necessary, I want to be able to flip a gate up and hold stuff inside. Right now I've been using one of those like bungee cord nets or just bungee cords themselves, which if I was driving behind that I would be nervous and I don't want to be that guy. So the original gate, which is right over here, goes up about yay tall, but it goes on the inside and goes a little bit further than this podium will allow. And since this podium is going to be in here probably most of the time now that I've got it, I need something else, and it makes sense not to have something sitting way up here unnecessarily. So that is the necessity. I happen to have enough scrap around to make this project. I only had to order one thing, and that is the pins for the barrel hinges down here. I just ordered a piece of bar stock that I will just cut to length. I was able to harvest more barrels off of another project that are just the right size, so I will utilize those. I've got some 18 gauge sheet left over from another project. I had plenty on that. I don't remember how much. It was a 4x8 sheet that I'd cut of 18 inches off of, so I had plenty of that. I had to cut it in half just to get it back to my residence, which I brought it back just for this project. So I'll be using about a foot of that, and the 4 feet wide is perfect. And I also had from another project this square tube, which should be perfect for the frame of the gate. This gate isn't going to be holding any weight. It is purely to keep stuff in the trailer underneath the podium, and this size of tube will be totally up to that task. I've already measured it and I've got just the right amount to get a whole frame out of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try something new, and rather than cut it into 4 pieces and weld them all together, I'm going to try to do this in one piece by cutting out little triangles where I can bend it. Regardless, at this one corner I will have to weld it together, so that's where I'm going to start by cutting my 45. I'm going to use my angle grinder for this, and we're going to get to it. First cut is made. Just looking at it with kind of my naked eye, I believe I will need to probably square that up with a flap disc, but that's okay. So my next cut is right here. I need 48 inches to the long side, and what I'm going to try to do is cut out this triangle here and then leave this part attached so I can bend it and get a straight angle. Now I need to make sure that I leave enough room on this back side for it to bend, so I can't go right into that corner. I've got to have a little bit of flex there, so I'll probably just cut this on the outside of each of these lines. Take that square out and we'll see. Now if this doesn't work, I can just cut it and weld it like normal, but trying something new just for fun. Okay, overall that went pretty well. I had to swap out my cutoff disc for one that was longer to be able to reach the angles, and this one I had to turn it upside down, so I was kind of spraying it kind of in my face, but it was a pretty quick cut, so that's not a big deal. So yeah, I think that will bend quite nicely. Looks like I'm just this side of my mark, but that shouldn't make a significant difference. So I'm going to do that a couple more times. My next one is going to be 10 inches, again to the long side, and then I won't take you through this every time. So I've got 48. I need 2 48s and 2 10s. So I need to mark my next one 10 inches up, cut out my triangle, 48 and then 10. I'll get those done and then bring you back. My cuts are all made. When I got to this one right here, it started getting a little difficult because this, where my cuts are on this end started getting a little bit flimsy. It wants to bend, which is good, that's what I want, but it did make it a little hard to control. So you may consider, if you're doing this, being able to clamp this down or having a second set of hands. And then I almost forgot that I didn't need to triangulate this one because this was my other end. So I did triangulate it initially and then remembered, oh yeah, and so I just finished cutting it off. So with that, we should be able to bend this into our rectangle. I don't have a means to set up my camera for you to watch this, but I'll start with this one. Bend and bend and bend and see how close we get to lining up. Okay, I got that bent into place relatively easy. Quite pleased. The gaps are a little bigger than I expected, but that's okay. They are well within being able to be filled with some weld. I have one piece, this one here at the very end, that is twisted a little bit this way. So I'll put, I think, just a pair of vice grips in the middle, tweak that a little bit, and tack it. I think that'll solve the problem. Of course, I will double check for square on all these ends. I'll probably do that by starting with the ones here, which are connected, and get those to kind of firm up a little bit, and then I will deal with tweaking this piece over, squaring and setting. It's the next day and I've clearly been working on my frame. I've got it all welded up. All my corners, I got everything tweaked and all my corners are square, at least to my satisfaction. I then went ahead and did some grinding just on this one side, which is going to have the backing plate put on it. And while I had the grinder set up, took the excess weld off of these barrels that I've salvaged. And now I need to get it like cleaned up, ready to weld these on and ultimately to paint. So I've put my wire brush on and I'm going to take that and hopefully make pretty quick work of these two towards that end. I've been wanting to work on this half gate project some more, but some life stuff came up that demanded my time. I have just a couple minutes today that I'm going to put in on it. What I want to do is get all my cutting done so I am ready to weld. I have just finished going over this filler piece on both sides with a wire brush, getting all the rust off, and it is looking really quite nice. That means that we are ready to do some welding. I'm going to, at the very least, get it tacked into place. I'll do as much as I can, but my time's a little bit short at the moment, so I probably won't be able to weld the whole thing in. One thing I noticed about the frame when I got it put together is that it seems like it kind of squishes in the middle a little bit. So I'm going to grab my long level and see just how bad it is. Looking at it right here, it seems to my naked eye to be this bar in particular. I'm not sure if this one really has an issue. If that is the case and it's just the one side, then what I will do is make the straight side the bottom so that the hinges are relatively straight and don't bind in the barrels, and probably just leave the top. I've got plenty of wiggle room with this piece that I won't really need to worry about that. So let's see where we're at if my eye is telling me the truth here. Well, there it is. You can see the gap there. That's a good 1/4 inch. So I'm flat on both corners. And this is the bar that I was thinking was straight. So let's see what this one looks like. So also probably about the same. So these do both sides bow in. So I think what I'll do is I'll see if I can rig up one of my clamps, one of my reversible clamps, to become a press. I'll see if I can put it in the middle and squeeze that out a little bit. Okay, I've got my press in place and it has done the job here in the middle. However, I still have a little bit of a gap in between. I've got one more and I could do like thirds, but I think what I'll do is I will take this off and I'll put it on one end and I'll tack that end and just work my way across, moving this press in between. Welder is out and running, as you can probably hear. I've got a clamp in place, sucking this down nice and flush. And what I'm going to do is do a little bit here and then probably come to this other end and do it here. And then flip this around and do the same thing on the other side. So my two ends will be done, and then I can start to manipulate the middle to get those two bars to spread out where I want them and get them tacked in a similar fashion. Tried to use this to split them apart and ended up not quite having the hold power to get it perfectly straight. But it's close enough for what I need to do. This end is much closer than this end, probably by about 50%. So I will use this end as my bottom, where the hinges will attach. But otherwise, things are being held in place. I will have to, I've got some lift on this a little bit, just because this sheet's not perfectly straight. So I will have to put the clamp. I use this one to clamp it down and this one to spread. So I'll continue using that and get things dialed in and then just finish stitching them together. I still need to clean up the welds, get the slag and stuff off. But overall, this is going really nicely. So far, it's taken me about 40 minutes to do probably 85%. So this is going much more efficient than I expected it to, and just a testament to when you have good equipment properly set up, it makes for much more efficient work. That now that I know how to use this new welder of mine, I'm really liking it. I haven't had any problems with burnouts. It's been doing really nice beads. Things were going absolutely great, and then I ran out of welding wire. So that brings me to a forced stopping point right now, which is not a big deal. I've got plenty of other things to do. I will bring you back in after I finish stitching this up when I get my new roll of wire. One other thing that I have observed is looking at it from this angle. I don't know if you can see that, but I do have some kind of washboard action in the plate. I also noticed that on these main bars, they have also started to kind of scoop this way. I'm guessing that's probably because there was heat on the top and cold on the bottom through the welding table. And that shouldn't affect its usability. If that is a problem, I should be able to find a way to bend that back as far as I need to, but I don't think that is going to be an issue. I've got my new wire. Unfortunately, Ace didn't have it in stock, so I had to get this one from Harbor Freight. I will get it put on and finish stitching the 3 spots up that I have on this. And then I think we'll be ready to get the hinges put on. I have finished welding in the plate. An observation, I can see right where I took over with the new wire. I don't know if it'll come out on camera, but it starts right there. This wire welds differently than the wire I had on before, and I like the wire, my first wire, better than this one. It's not just in this place where I can see it, I can also see it on the other side. So for future reference for myself, I will be using Arc Captain wire instead of Harbor Freight wire. It's just got a little bit smoother bead. If I was going to grind this down and smooth it up, I'd have a lot less work to do with the Arc Captain wire. That said, I'm going to grab the hammer and the brush and get rid of the slag and stuff on here, and then turn my attention to the hinges. Getting started on my hinges here, I've got a 9/16 stainless round rod going inside this barrel, and the barrel is probably really more like a 5/8. So to help get it centered, I took a couple extra pieces of flux core wire that I had snipped off, and I just put them, I've got 4 of them in there, you won't be able to see them all. That pretty much has it centered. So I'm going to tack that and then check the other side and probably do the same thing on the other side, and then burn it in from there. And there it is. That worked really well. I did 4 pieces of wire on this back side, which kind of cleaned up some of what I had on the ground. I ended up cutting 8 pieces off of the leftover wire from the old wire loom, and I put 8 on this side, which really centered this one pretty well. Both of them are good enough. So next step, still a little bit warm, but I've got my gloves on, so I'm okay. Should line up perfectly just like that, so I just need to tack that in place and then cut my rod and do this one more time for the other side. Boom! Hinges are on. I haven't checked them yet to see if they will fit, but I'm pretty confident. I've got some margin of error because the barrels on the trailer are pretty much the same size as these, which means I've got some play for these pins. So it should work just fine. I've got it in place, and I've come across another problem. So this fits pretty well. The hinges are working nicely, but it only closes up to there. And here is the problem I have. At this end, the podium sticks out maybe 1/8 of an inch, and on the other side, the bed sticks out about the same amount, which is lined up right with the podium. So the podium's kind of a problem either way. The bed I could cut off and modify, but the podium would be much harder. So I think what I need to do is cut these hinges off and move them. It'd be towards the backside, the outside, so that when I close this up, it allows it to go this way because the hinges aren't pinching down in here. So that's kind of a bummer since I welded them all the way on. I should have test fit them first, but so it goes. It won't be too hard to just take the angle grinder, cut off wheel, cut that out there, same on the other side, and relocate these. I'm set up, I'm geared up, time to undo some work. So the last thing I have to do to get this usable is fabricate the keepers, the latches that are going to go up here. I've got the materials to do that. Let me show you what I've got to do for those. This is a piece of scrap that I had left over from a project that I didn't. I have this piece left over from another project that I ended up going a different direction on, and it's just about perfect to make the brackets for my keepers. So I've done the math and marked everything out. This will be my back piece, this will be my other back piece, and then I'll need the 2 holes on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. I've marked all my cut lines with an X, which is all but one. This one right here, my thought was I could cut this about 3/4 of the way through and then just bend it around and then weld that piece. But since I have to weld it anyway, I'm thinking at this point, so that they're all pretty much the same, I'm just going to go ahead and cut them all. I have all my pieces cut off, obviously, and cleaned up on both sides. On this one, I have marked my distance. I used the old gate as a reference. So this is where my pin needs to line up. These barrels are a little bit longer, so I just lined it up with the front of the barrel where the pin comes out. My next challenge is to find a way to get these on at about a 45-degree angle right off the corner. I believe will be sufficient. Now, one of these isn't really a big deal. I can just kind of put it on. It's getting the second one to line up with it. I got the first one on and then did the back one and just tried to kind of line it up the same angle I perceived on this one. And really, at least from this side, it looks like they are really lined up quite well. But the ultimate test, of course, is to see how it fits the trailer. So let's go take a look. Forgive my shadow, it's just that time of day. I've got these tacked in 2 places, right at the back of the barrel and one towards the front. I've got that on both of them. Let's see. Okay. Alright, so that is beautiful. Those work just fine. Yes, I'm very, very happy with that. Puts the gate pretty much straight up. So that will work. Now I see here that on this particular one, I've got a solid like 1/4, maybe 3/8 gap, which is more than I would like. This one's flush, and I've got good clearance on both sides. So I think I want to move this one over just a little bit. So I'll go make that adjustment and then get these burned back on. Okay, I've got that moved over. I have confirmed the fit. The pins slide in almost exactly evenly right up to the weld. With that, let's get this welded on both sides and then get to working on the latches or the keepers. I have my settings changed for 1/8 inch thick metal, and I've got my first angle set up, 90 degrees, just using a magnet. I don't know if my ground will transfer through that. We'll try it and see. I've got both brackets put together. This one's still a bit hot, so I won't touch it. This is the magnet I used, just a little Harbor Freight one. Came in their multi-magnet package. Used this 90-degree angle. I did still have to hold it together because the wire came out so fast that it would push my 2 pieces apart if I wasn't holding it. So I had to tack it, holding it together, and then burn it in the rest of the way. Burned in really quickly. Next step is to get my retainers, and what I mean by retainers, on these old ones you can see these 2 bars right here that pull back and hold the pin. And to make that, I'm going to use just a good old framing nail. I'm going to cut off the top, the head, and the point, and then cut it in half, and it's almost exactly the length I need. And what I'm going to do is drill a hole through here and put the nail through the hole and weld it from the back side. They are pretty much made. The welding part is done, at least. That one is still hot, but this one, I did not get these pins lined up or as straight as a perfectionist would like, but they are passable. I'm going to roll with them. So what I have to do now is make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to cut these pins down a little bit. They're a little long, and I'm going to round the corners here, similar to my example I've been mocking these up after, and then drill these holes out a little bit bigger so they're not quite big enough for the pins that I have, which that's like the easiest part to do. So I'm going to do the, oh, and I forgot, grind the back flat. I've got some weld protruding both out of the middle, as you can see, and on both edges, but that should just take a moment to knock those down so this will be nice and flat for when I weld it onto the gate. My two pieces are welded on. I was able to get a pretty good weld on 3 sides, so all the way on this side and the top, and then just this bar width there. That should hold totally fine for what this gate will be intended for. That should be totally sufficient strength for what this gate will be asked to do. So I'm now going to take the flap disc and go over this and get all the spatter off, which should be a pretty quick task, and then this will be ready for paint. And after that, one more minor modification so that it will close on the trailer. The last modification I have to make for this gate to work is to the latch hole right here. Now, I've already started working on it. Some of it is bent naturally, but I've been going at it here with a pretty aggressive round file, and it's making pretty quick work of it. The other side is already done, so I just need to finish this one up. I've got just that top corner to take down, and this will fit. I did consider replacing these tabs altogether. One thing that has happened since I started working on this gate is I did have to move the trailer, and on the I also decided to move the original gate with it, which I just strapped on. And as I put it on, I realized if I had looked at it, I could have just cut this tab off and made a new one with a hole about right here, and the old gate would have worked. And that was a little bit of a depressing thought, because it made me think I've wasted a lot of time and material making this new half gate that I really didn't need to make. However, when we were bringing the trailer back, my wife was driving and I was following behind her on a motorcycle, and I noticed this rear four-wheeler had shifted a little bit and needed to be tied down. So I had her stop, and I went to adjust the tie downs and anchors, and I found that working around that gate, which sits up about this tall, was really awkward because it's so tight right in the middle between the two four-wheelers that if I want to get to the middle, the easiest thing to do is to go up and over right here where the seat is. And so I decided that this half gate would actually be preferred when the four-wheelers are on it. So I have continued to finish this project. So this is the last thing other than to paint the gate. And there it is. A very nice fit, pretty tight tolerance. That'll hold this gate really nicely. It's about the same on the other side. Now when I get back to using the regular gate, which will be when this podium is out, and I need the gate for the ramp portion of it, which it's great for something like a street bike, because this trailer's low enough that that low clearance can actually cover, and I've run into that a couple times. So I definitely will use that gate. So I anticipate there will come a time that I will want that gate back on here. And when that happens, because I've just opened this gap, that's going to make this a little bit rickety. And so I think what I will do eventually is get a big washer that's got a nice big hole on it that'll fit, and I'll put that on to cut down on the forward spacing. I don't need that with the half gate because I've got the podium right here that is a natural stop for it. So next time I get to the regular gate, I will probably do that. That'll be a really quick and easy thing to do. As far as this half gate goes, the only thing left to do on this is get it painted, other than put the springs and pin in these. But that's an easy task. Time is of the essence. I am using the trailer this weekend for some four-wheeling, and so I need to get this gate done, plus a couple of other things that I haven't bothered to film. And so the last thing on this gate is to get it painted. So I've hung it from this tree so I can get all the way around it. I think I will tape off my hinges down here so I don't have to worry about overspray. Those are stainless, so they will be fine. And I will of course lift up on the maple leaves here so that they don't get painted and die. But otherwise I should be able to get all the way around it. The paint I'm using is the Rust Stop. I've got primer that I'll put on first. That's supposed to be about 1 minute time between coats, which I should easily be able to use. So I can just kind of go around, get several thin coats on it, and then same thing with the paint. We'll go in black, which should match the trailer, and this is supposed to be dry in 30 minutes, handle in 1 hour, and if I need to touch anything up, I've got up to 2 hours for touch-ups, or after that I will have to wait. So let me grab some blue tape for those hinges, and then we'll get to spraying. I've got 3 coats on it, 2 light ones and 1 a bit heavier. I feel like I've used about half my can of primer. I think I'll do 1 more heavier coat. But interesting to me, I've got 2 places that just don't seem to be taking it. Can't really see it on camera. There's one right there on the bottom, and there's a similar spot right up here on the top. But everything else seems to be looking good. I've got a nice even primer gray going around. So yeah, I'll hit 1 more heavy coat, and then I think I'll go ahead with the color. There it is. 4 rounds of primer, 2 light and 2 medium, and then 4 or 5 rounds of paint. It seemed like the paint didn't come out quite as heavy and thick as the primer, so those were naturally lighter coats. It's probably a little hard to see with the sun starting to hit it, but it does have a really nice matte black sheen to it. I just finished it, so it is not safe to touch yet, but give it 30 minutes, well, probably an hour. I can leave it up there for a bit, and then I need to put the keepers in right here, which will only take a couple of minutes. And my wife just drove by. And then this should be ready. Ultimately, I probably need to put like a clear coat on it to really keep it from fading, and because the clear coat's where the protection really is. But for this weekend, this will work. It has been a couple of hours. The paint is suitable to touch, and we're just about there. Last thing I need to do is put my keeper latches on. You can see I've got my spring in and this. Then I just need to take the pin and drive the pin through that little hole right there, which I will have to pull the spring back and get this started and kind of drive it in. So I'll need both hands. So you won't be able to watch, but I'll show you when I'm done. There it is. My depth this way isn't quite enough for me to drive the pin in right to the center, but I've got it in far enough. You can see that it's functioning. It's only latching on this one side, but that's not a big deal. That's totally fine. So I've got both of them in, and now last thing to do is to put it on the trailer. And there it is, fully installed, operational. Those slid right into place. And now that gate is, yeah, that's going to ride really nice. It's not going to rattle a whole lot. It's going to ride pretty quiet. It's going to keep everything inside, so I can put the ramps if I want in there, or some gear. Gas cans fit in the middle, so that is a big help, and that wraps up this project. That pretty much does it for this project. It's a job well done. I'm glad I did it. I'm happy with how it came out. Do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, leave a comment and tell me your thoughts, things that you would have done differently and why. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.